Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us tonight Mr. Pat Sutphin.
Hello.
There's supposed to be clapping right now, but it's not working. All right, I'm just going to edit it in. This always happens. All right, there's clapping right now. Awesome. I have to stop it. I'm just going to start the conversation. Okay, so Mr. Pat, I'm going to be making you do the brunt of the conversation tonight because, as you can tell, I'm a little bit stuffy, a little bit hoarse. It's all that winter sickness going around from my sneezy, snotty 2-year-old daughter. So, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what do you like to do?
Well, fortunately for you, I am a storyteller, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Nice.
Originally, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, but now I live in Idaho. I've been in Idaho for the past 11 years. I'm a big nerd. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a big movie fan. I like going on outdoor adventures, hanging out with my son. Seeing wherever he takes me is always the fun adventure as a parent, but yeah. Oh, and I do own my own photography business. I'm a full-time professional photographer as well as a writer.
That's cool. Awesome. Yeah, so I was looking at your bio a little bit, and it said that you loved writing early on when you were younger, and then you got into the newspaper industry. So tell me a little bit about your experiences in the newspaper industry. Like, what's the craziest thing that you came across?
Oh man, I have done a lot of crazy things with the newspaper industry. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in that industry. The problem is it's very hard to support yourself. It's not the most lucrative of industries to be in. But off the top of my head, I've been on paranormal investigations. I've been skydiving, scuba diving. I once spent 6 hours in a cave looking for a missing head. That was something that I did on the job. I photographed presidents, Olympic athletes, you name it.
And did any of these experiences inform your creativity and be like, I want to write a book about this experience particularly?
Yes, maybe not a book about those experiences, but I think getting a broader understanding of the world and seeing other cultures, how different people live, even small communities and hometown traditions, I think can really shape how you develop characters. So getting that viewpoint and seeing what matters to other people, I think is really important, especially when you're looking at characters and plot, and what motivates people.
Okay, interesting. So, moving on a little bit, you said that you quit your job to write full time. Tell me about that leap of faith.
Well, so after a decade in the newspaper industry, I had worked my way all the way up to a very, very low salary, and it wasn't really cutting it for me. On top of that, I was commuting 4.5 hours every week to pick up my son, which isn't an issue. I'll drive all day if I have to see him. I love my son, but it was becoming an issue because, he's in third, fourth grade. He was getting into third and fourth grade, and he couldn't do any extracurricular activities because I had him every single weekend. So it was really starting to affect his social life and his school life. And I wanted to be more involved in his school. So I decided to quit my job. I moved closer to my son. So now I'm only about 20 minutes away, which is fantastic. And I took a leap of faith on my writing and my photography. And I will say that it has been fantastic. Working for the newspaper, again, I have nothing bad to say about the newspaper. I loved my time there, but I was stuck in neutral. I wasn't moving forward. I was just doing the daily grind, and that was it. As soon as I quit my job, I got my photography business up and running, and I've been supporting myself on that. I published my first book within a month of quitting, and now I have my second novel out, and I have a third one in the works as we speak. So it was really just that motivation, because now every dollar that I earn, I genuinely earn. Whereas before, I felt like I was just kind of collecting a paycheck and sitting around, and I was never achieving anything.
Well, this is interesting. This is not specific to writing, but I feel like you've done what a lot of people wish they could do, which is turn their passion into a livelihood. What would you say to people who are afraid to take the first step?
I would say whatever you're passionate about in this world, you can find a way to make a living off of it. I think we've seen that with trends with TikTokers and influencers and, random hobbyists, craftsmen, whatever you can dream of, I think is possible as long as you're willing to take that leap of faith and have a backup plan, have two, have three. When I quit my job, I started shooting for a place called Idaho Sports, which covers high school athletics in the area. So I knew that I had some form of income coming from them, just freelancing. I was donating plasma. I still drive for DoorDash to fill in gaps in income. It's not easy, like you're going to have to work a lot harder, especially if you're building a business or in the case of writing, building a brand. It's a lot of work. I'm constantly putting in hours for it. And you have to have that drive and that motivation to take that step and do it. But if you are driven, you can make it happen. You can accomplish those goals and those dreams. I actually have something I want to show you. My mom
Yeah.
came out to visit me not that long ago, and she brought this, uh, which, so I remember all the way back in the day, as far as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to be a photographer. I never really had an exact point in which I knew that for sure. This is a book that I wrote in the 6th grade. It was school projects that we had to do. And on the Meet the Author page, when I grow up, I will be a photographer and a part-time writer. And I've checked both those off. So since the 6th grade, I've known
Wow.
exactly what I want to do, and I haven't strayed from it.
That is awesome. That is inspiring to say the least. And a little point on that. You were talking about how much work it is and how difficult it is, and I think everybody knows it's difficult to follow your dreams. But I would ask, on a scale of difficulty versus rewarding, like where does that fall for you?
It's absolutely worth it. Like I said, when I worked for the newspaper industry, I felt like I was stuck in neutral, and I didn't feel like I was achieving everything. I am working twice as many hours now, just trying to make ends meet. I do have months where I'm not sure if I'm going to have that money for rent. I've had to borrow from friends and pay them back. It's scary, but it's so rewarding because everything that I accomplish, I can say I did that. That was on me. I'm the one that put in the work, and I earned that. And especially for me and instilling a work ethic in my son, being able to look at everything that I've accomplished and show him like, hey, we have this money, we have this rent right now because I did all the steps to do that. It wasn't handed to me. I worked my butt off for it. My son has grown up on the sidelines shooting high school sports with me. He's actually a pretty good photographer himself. He really wants to read my books, but he's not quite old enough, at least for my first novel. I might let him read this one. But he's very excited, and he's willing to take the steps with me because when you're doing something like this, you do need the support of your friends and your family. And I have a wonderful support system in all of my friends and family members, but especially to my son, who is going with me to these high school sporting events and whatever book events I need to go to. He understands when, not all of our time is fun playtime, but we have to do some work, and he's eager and excited to work with me.
That's awesome. Yeah, again, I think the word that I used before, which still stands, 2 minutes later, is inspiring. And I think a lot of people need to get up off their asses and write that book, so to speak. I mean, myself included, I'm a little guilty of that sometimes. Perhaps this whole podcast venture is me just procrastinating my book. I don't know. I write a little bit here and there still.
Well,
all right.
I mean, what's your book about?
That's funny because I always ask people about their books, but no one ever asked me about mine. But my current work in progress is a story about a secular kingdom. So it's a fantasy story, a secular kingdom where there's no magic. Nobody knows anything about magic. And the king dies, and the son, who is a drunk, has the kingship thrust upon him. And in the midst of this, a mage shows up and starts doing magic, and everyone's like, "What the heck is going on?" So it's a story about him learning his place in the kingdom and his responsibilities, and among other things. But yeah, that's my work in progress.
I mean, that's pretty interesting. I like that. Now, have you outlined it? How far are you into the process?
I'm 82K words in right now.
Okay,
that's my second book, my second unpublished book. So.
So why haven't you gone through and published the first one then?
The first one, it requires some more run through. It's a completely different universe. It's more of a sci-fi. One, the 2-second tagline would be like, prehistoric cave boy is abducted by intergalactic aliens. I'll just leave it at that.
All right.
That one's 107,000 words, but it's the universe in that is much larger, and I need to work a lot more on it before it's ready. But that's going to be a series. There's a lot to write on that one.
Okay. Well, for any writers that are listening to this podcast, and for you, I highly recommend outlining. It is such a pivotal tool. So my first novel, it's 320,000 words. Wow. Detention, which is available on Amazon. I wrote the first book and I was a pantser. I'm just like, I'm going to do it. I have general plot points in my head. It's going to be fine. What could go wrong? I was 18 and an idiot. So, we went for it. I wrote the entire book and I sent it out to my editors. And then I started reading through it. And I think within like 10, 15 chapters, I emailed my editors. I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. Just delete that email. Like, we got to fix this. And it was awful. The first 8 or so chapters were solid because I had gone through them so many times beforehand. But once it got past that and I didn't have a clear idea of where the story was going, it just fell off the rails. There was no rising action. The climax wasn't there. The falling action, the resolution, all of it was terrible. So what I ended up doing was scrapping 2/3 of the book, which is a lot of pages, like more than 200 pages, and starting over with an outline and going through and writing it. So I know not everyone is a big fan of outlining. I highly recommend it because at the worst case scenario is if I get sidetracked or I get on a tangent, I at least know where I have to get to on my next chapter. So I go chapter by chapter with my outline, and it is such a useful tool for me to just know where I'm going.
Yeah. And, I'm very similar. Like, I don't have super strict outlines when I write. I write down a few plot points that I want to hit along the way and kind of fill in the rest as I go. And it's interesting because, like, that way I don't feel too confined. Like, oh, I have to do this. And, he has to be here on this day. It's like, I can kind of explore and see what new characters happen to pop up and, what new plot points I discover because of me just BSing my way through writing.
Oh, yeah. I'll be the first to admit that every story that I've written, every novel, every book, everything, I follow my outline and then I go on a tangent. And that will always happen. And my book will have more chapters than my outline does every single time. But it will always get back to the story it needs to get back to. And that's the important thing because especially when I'm just writing off the cuff and I'm, making it up as I go, I think about those critical things like, having our main characters fail and having setbacks and building up the character voices and tones, just simple stuff like that, that if you're not consistent throughout the entire book, it's going to ruin the experience for all of your readers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you keep mentioning characters, which I want to get to in a minute, because the way that you were writing your book tag, I guess we could call it, just made me keep thinking about these characters. So let's pause this and let's start talking about your book, which I'm sure you'd love to talk about.
All right.
You tagged it as, let me see if I can find this here. So the title is Mercenaries of Misfortune, the Ghost Ship Leviathan. Love that title.
Right.
And you tagged it as, excuse me, a sci-fi novella series that follows the worst crew in the cosmos. Firefly meets Dead Space in this Cthulhu comedy about a crew fumbling their way through numerous adventures. So I love that. It tells me so much about it. And I'm a huge Firefly fan. And I feel like there are notes of comedy in Firefly as well. So tell me how comedy plays into your book a little bit.
Comedy is extremely hard to write. I learned while writing this novel, comedy and horror, both of those really hard on their own. Put them together and I have no idea what I'm doing. So, I hope it lands for the readers. I will say that when my editors and my ARC readers read through the book, they all responded to different things, which I think is good, that it does have a wide spectrum of jokes and bits and styles of humor that kind of connect to different people. I totally forgot what the question was. I'm not going to lie. How does comedy play in?
Yeah, I kind of dragged that one on. It was, how does comedy play into that? And I actually wrote more specific questions. So walk me through your comedic voice as well, like your narration, your dialogue. Is it situations? Like, how do you interweave comedy in it?
I am a big fan of situational humor, just from my personal media consumption preferences. I am not a big fan of like really dumb slapstick comedy. There is some of that in this book. There are a couple of moments that are, the characters are playing jokes on each other and, you get some of those moments. But for the most part, I do like very situational comedy. I like comedy, especially, and I think it's a common trope, but just I'm totally spacing on the terminology for it. But when one character knows what's going on, or when we, the viewers, know what's going on and the characters don't, so it creates those situational moments because it all could be very easily avoided if someone would talk to someone, but they never do. I like that stuff because it creates these uncomfortable situations. And I think those I usually find the funniest. there are some running gags in this book because this is the first in the series. So I have some things that are going to progress throughout the entire series. One of those I'm not afraid to, give away and let you guys know is the name of the ship is going to change in every single book because they are the worst space crew in the cosmos. And every time they botch a job, they have to change the name of their ship. So that is going to be a running gag of terrible, terrible ship names that keeps going on throughout the entire series.
I love that. What other things make them so terrible other than botching jobs, or is that it?
So this series and the series that I'm currently working on are based off of my nerddom. So this one, I used to play a game called Traveler, which I don't know if you're familiar with. It's essentially Dungeons and Dragons in space. So think Dungeons and Dragons, but you're on a spaceship. It's pretty much the tabletop RPG of Firefly. And I played with this one group, and this was years ago, probably almost a decade at this point, but it was the most fun I've had playing a tabletop RPG game because of how bad we were. And we had a really, really fantastic game master, and even we stumped him so many times because of the blunders that we would have. And every time we played, I kept thinking to myself, like, this would make such a great story because I don't know anyone else that's writing about the crew that is just absolutely awful. So a lot of the moments in the book are pulled straight from my campaign of mistakes that we made. I've changed the situation, the plot itself, and the characters because, unfortunately, when you're playing a game like that and you screw up, one of the characters die, but I want to be able to create characters that continue on throughout the series. So we changed some of the circumstances of the blunders, but the blunders are stuff that we as players actually did and thought it was a good idea at the time. As far as what makes them a terrible crew, it's just their dynamic. They are a dysfunctional family, and it's even talked about in the book that one of the best things about the captain is her ability to keep this crew together when in all aspects they should not work as a team. And somehow they're able to work as a team, just not in the way that they're hired to do.
Got it. It's interesting that you bring up this tabletop game. I interviewed another author a few weeks ago. I actually just posted his interview recently. And he wrote his entire 600-page book based off of the tabletop game that he and his friends created like in the 80s or something like that, like a sci-fi game. So it's funny to see all of the nerddom converging into books and authors and trying to share the experience and trying to capture it in a way that can be digestible by someone that wasn't there. And like you mentioned, your characters are dying and stuff. Well, let's go back to the characters now. I said we were going to come full circle to that. So tell me about your characterization and how many different characters are in this crew and some of their quirks and personality traits.
Okay, so the crew has 5 characters in it, and throughout the books, we'll see different characters come and go. But the main crew is 5. So we have Captain Kelly, who is the leader of the ship. She has a bit of a bloated ego, not so much ego, but self-worth. She believes wholeheartedly that her crew and her ship is worth more than they're ever given credit for, and she's willing to do whatever she can to prove that. We have Zeke, who is the pilot. That's the word I'm looking for. He's the pilot of the ship. He has his own quirks. One of which is he always refers to the ship as Mum, the AI voice on the ship, as mother. And it's not really brought up whether or not he actually believes that's his mother or not, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. We have Grace Spantinelli, which goes by the nickname Splints. She is the kleptomaniac doctor on board the ship, which creates a lot of really interesting situations for her. We have Mallet, who's the ship's mechanic. He is a cyborg with constantly malfunctioning body parts. And our final crewmate is Cadus. Cadus is an Anubilo, which is a 9-foot tall dog man who is known for his short temper, fear of water, and extreme fear of spiders.
Nice. Well, you know your characters quite well. As you're outlining some of their quirks, I just kept getting images of Borderlands. I'm not sure why. Have you played Borderlands before?
I have. It's been a while, but I have played Borderlands.
Okay.
I actually played a tabletop version of Borderlands, an RPG of it.
Nice. Interesting. Yeah, it's excuse me. I've interviewed a couple authors so far, and it's interesting to see this convergence of comedy with science fiction that I keep seeing pop up again. So maybe I'll need to visit that someday and hop in the genre and see how that goes.
Well, if you
Um,
have any recommendations, I would love to read some more stuff of comedy and sci-fi blends, or horror and sci-fi blends as well.
okay, yeah. So you mentioned Dead Space. I've never actually played Dead Space. I know some of the premise of it, but walk me through why you said it's like Dead Space.
Fun fact: I've actually never played. I think I started one time playing Dead Space and played about an hour of it, and that was it. That came from my one of my editors said that reading through the book just reminded him of Dead Space because of the horror aspect and the thought of being stuck in the middle of space on this stranded vessel. He felt like it was very reminiscent of that. So that's a recommendation from one of my editors.
Okay, got it. So let's talk about your editors and your publishing process. Now, are you self or traditionally published?
I am self-published.
Okay, so walk me through how you got to where you are today. Pen to paper to I can buy it on Amazon or wherever I can buy it.
Sure. So when I wrote Detention, which is my first novel, I really wanted to go the traditional publishing route. I know it's a trilogy. It had everything that I needed for it. And I reached out. I tried to get an agent, sent out hundreds of query letters, and nobody, I mean, some responded, but nobody wanted to represent me. And it turns out that it's kind of a double-edged sword. So it's a catch-22 because to get an agent, you have to have an agent in order to get published traditionally. But to get an agent, they want to see a resume with published works. So how does that happen? So I decided to self-publish on Amazon, at least for these books. I do have another one in the works, which I am going to try to traditionally publish once it is ready. And once I get all of my resume lines down, which is why I'm working on series as well, just trying to, get a lot of books out. Um, Publishing on Amazon isn't hard at all. It's a very easy process. Um, so the first thing that you have to do is obviously write the book. That's a key step, and then edit it. For the love of God, please edit your books. I go through Gold Medal Editing. They are fantastic. I've been with them for years. In fact, I recently joined on as an editor at Gold Medal Editing because of the amazing work they've done with my books that I wanted to be a part of that team. So I am a freelance editor for them as well, but they do fantastic work. Even for brainstorming and like my outline, I'll send to them and they'll give me feedback on that. It's really great. So once your book is edited, you need to get cover art. I have a fantastic cover artist, so I sent her my ideas, which are literally like stick people on a piece of paper or a napkin, and I send it to her, and then she makes something amazing out of it. And then you go on to Amazon, you upload your book, you upload your cover art. Always order a proof copy, which has this bar across it that says not for resale, because it helps you find all of your mistakes, which are super important. You definitely want to do that. I actually found with Mercenaries of Misfortune that when I did the dimensions, the margins were too close, so some of the words bled into the fold, and that doesn't make it easy to read. So I'm glad I got the proof copy on that one to catch that before it happens. And then you post it, and it goes live. You have a couple of different options as far as royalties on what you want to get for royalties, based off of how much you charge for your book. You can also enroll in Kindle Unlimited, which means that anyone that has Kindle Unlimited can read your book for free, and you get royalties based off of pages read. So that's another option for you. But yeah, the process through Amazon is very simple, at least getting your
Okay.
book up.
So, question about Kindle Unlimited. I've heard of that option before. Do you find that people tend to read a few pages of your book, or once they start, they read the entire thing? Or do you even have access to that data?
Um, you do have access to like pages read within the month. You can pick your search time span, so the last week, the month, the all time. Uh, yeah, I wasn't seeing a lot of people that were reading my book the entire way through. Granted, I learned the hard way with Detention that apparently you're supposed to market it before you publish it. I didn't know that. So nobody really knew my book was out until it was out. And then I was trying to catch up and let everyone know. And so it wasn't a successful launch on Detention. Hopefully when the sequel comes out, we'll see more numbers from that one. And my new book has been up since Friday, so we don't have enough data to really see what's going on with that yet.
Okay, so marketing strategies. What have you done differently this time than the last time?
To start with, I got on TikTok. I'm not a social media guru, but I have learned my way onto TikTok. So trying to engage with specifically the audiences for this book, making different TikToks, getting on Facebook, finding the Facebook groups for sci-fi readers, that sort of thing, and just letting them know that this book was coming out. I did a couple of uh, videos where I, read a quick passage or read the back of the book blurb. I did a giveaway, which I was supposed to do a drawing for last night, but I ended up toning 42 photo galleries because I had a lot of work this weekend. So I'm going to do a giveaway after this, but I did it for the first book and I will do it for this one and every book moving forward. But I like to do a giveaway of the first book out of the box, the first run of prints, the first one I grab, I sign it, I give away to a fan. So I have that drawing coming up and we'll see who is lucky enough to win that. And then the big thing was building my newsletter is huge. So that way I can engage with my readers directly and getting ARC readers. I did not have any ARC readers for the first book. It's been up for a year now. I have 8 whole comments on Amazon, which Amazon search algorithms base it off of your comments. So nobody really sees the book unless they're specifically searching for my book. This book has been up for a couple of days and I've already had 3 different ARC readers comment on it. So it's a good start. I'm hoping that we're going to see a lot more comments as we go. But really talking with your audience and engaging with them and making sure that everyone knows that this is coming out and that they can get it.
Okay, awesome. Did you still want to read an excerpt tonight?
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah,
well, now's the
I
time.
can do that now.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a excerpt here, and I think this is a good one that kind of shows the different voices of my characters. So this takes place right after the crew accepts a job from the Galactic Council of Planets, half out of desperation and half out of an abundance of flattery from Commodore Trite. Kind of convinced the captain and buttered her up to take this assignment. And part of the deal with this job is they have to be accompanied by Private Purloin, who's a member of the Galactic Council of Planets. He's a military man to kind of watch them and keep track of what they're doing. So, as the Isu Cayman departs from the Commodore's ship and sets its course towards the stranded vessel, Captain Kelly rises from her seat. She paces back and forth, searching for the perfect words to encapsulate such a pivotal moment in their careers. We stand on the precipice of a mission that could redefine our legacy, she says. This mission is not just about rescuing civilians or recovering data. It's about proving to the Council that the Isu Cayman and its crew are indispensable. Each one of you plays a crucial role in the success of this mission, and I have absolute confidence in your abilities. Mallet stands at attention, soaking in every word the captain says. Behind him, Cadis and Splint snicker to themselves, but fortunately for them, the captain is too consumed by her words to notice. Do you think she's been practicing this speech? Splint whispers to Cadis. The giant canine shrugs. She does love a good dramatic moment. The longer she talks, the more annoyed Zeke gets. He's kept his opinions to himself up to this point, but traveling towards a danger none of his companions are taking seriously is making his stomach churn. The fire in his belly is growing too large to contain. Captain Kelly continues, completely oblivious to the reactions of her crew. We've trained for this, we've worked for this, and now, we're finally being recognized for our skills. The Commodore sees the value in what we do, and it's time for us to... He's lying to you, Zeke interrupts, much louder than he intended. He rises from his chair, his arms flailing about in anger. They're all lying to you. How can you not see that? We're known for a handful of things, but a reputation for successful jobs is not one of them. You, Private Purple, or whatever the hell your name is, explain to our captain why we were really selected for this mission. All eyes turn to the private, who solely focuses on his personal comm device and the message he's been busy sending. You were literally the only ship in the area, he responds without looking up. So
nice. I like it.
Excerpt.
Let's see if the clapping works. Give me a second here.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
You deserve that. Awesome. Cool. Well, I like that. I did get quite a bit of humor from that in multiple different spots. Excuse me. So, final questions before we're wrapping this up. What what need are you filling by writing this book? And, what are you hoping that people will take away from your book?
What need am I feeling for myself? What need am I feeling?
For for the world, for you? I mean, art for yourself is a completely valid answer.
I think that is at least the driving force for writing is I have all these ideas swirling around in my brain, and I just kind of want to share them with the world. I want to tell stories. Bedtime stories with my son is always one of my favorite things. Granted, he's getting a little older now, so he cares a little less about those. But I have all these ideas, and I'm such a consumer of media, movies, books, all that stuff. And when I see a regurgitated plot over and over again, it makes my skin crawl. I get so fed up with Hollywood and even several writers just turning out the same plot over and over, or creating a sequel to a story that should have ended. You can see it a lot with TV shows of just season after season when it should have ended years ago. So I'm hoping to give people something refreshing, something new, something different, even if it does feel familiar to several other things. It is my own story, and this one is it blends horror. There's a bit of gore in it, so fair warning. Some parts get a little bloody. There's comedy. It's got a little bit of everything, and so I hope people can really enjoy it. This one is supposed to be light and fun. Detention, that trilogy talks about a lot of different things. I'm pushing a lot of different points, and I think there's really important messages in there. This one is about family and disaster and fun.
Awesome. Everybody, Pat Sutphin.
Thank you.